Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Android, and Android is getting a change that's resulting in a lot of controversy. It doesn't seem this change is sitting well at all with Android users, myself included. And as a result, there's headlines like this one out here over on Android Authority. This small change might kill emulation on Android phones next year. Now, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this is huge news. It's being talked about and reported on all over the place, but I would say a headline like this is a little bit misleading and also a little bit clickbaity. I would say Ars Technica does a much better job at summarizing this. Google will block sideloading of unverified Android apps starting next year. Android headline says, sideloading on Android. Soon it'll be like a TSA check for apps. Also a little bit clickbaity, but also a little bit more accurate than Android Authority. And this one here, Google will require developer verification for Android apps outside the Play Store. And I think Ars Technica and TechCrunch sum up the situation the best. If you wanted to learn more about the entire situation and check out all of the articles, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. I did want to highlight this paragraph here from TechCrunch. So they say Google is tightening security measures around Android app distribution, the company announced on Monday. Starting next year, Google will begin to verify the identities of developers distributing their apps on Android devices, not just those who distribute via the Play Store. These changes will affect all certified Android devices once live, though the global rollout will be more gradual. So there are a couple of things here. First and foremost, if an app is already on the Google Play Store, the developer is already verified. So emulator apps already on the Google Play Store are already developer verified. One of the arguable big reasons why Aether SX2 is no longer on the Google Play Store because the developer did not want to verify themselves. Secondly, these changes will affect all certified Android devices. So gaming handhelds from, like, for example, AYN or Ioneo or really anything like that are not certified Android devices, so this really wouldn't apply. Thirdly here, Google notes that student and hobbyist developers, highlighting hobbyist developers, will be able to use a separate type of Android developer console account when this system rolls out, as their needs differ from commercial developers. And lastly, this is not being rolled out right away. It's not immediate. Google plans to begin testing this system with early access in October of this year. In March of next year, all developers will have access to the new console to get verified. In September of 2026, so next year, Google plans to launch this feature in Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. The next step is still hazy, but Google is targeting 2027 to expand the verification requirements globally. So based on this information, I would say that we're still going to hear quite a bit about this moving forward, considering it's not really going into effect globally until 2027, and we're not even in 2026 yet. Now, in my opinion here, this is not a good step for Android. I can understand why Google is doing this for security reasons, but there should be a way just to opt out of that and assume the risk all on your own. I know there are some dangers in sideloading. I know there's a huge risk of installing malware accidentally on your device. But at the same time here, if there's an actual process to unlock your phone to be able to do that, Google should allow that altogether. I think Google should make it an option for people who want to install unverified apps on their device. So while I don't necessarily think that this is going to kill Android moving forward, or even emulation for that matter, I do think it's going to put a dent in the entire process. I think it's going to put a dent in the popularity of Android, and I think it's not the right move by Google. I can understand for security reasons, but at the same time here, I mean, one of the benefits of Android was the fact that you can do anything you want with it. And now that's not really the case. And doing anything you want with it is also questionable, especially with scope storage and all of that stuff. Android used to be better, in my opinion. Anyways, here, just taking a look at this stuff, this is the wrong direction, but it just seems that it's the direction of like everything nowadays. Now, as for emulation on Android, titles like this, in my opinion, are super clickbait. I don't think emulation on Android is going to be killed at all. I mean, there's already apps on the Google Play Store where the developers are verified. I mean, I don't foresee like Dolphin or anything like that going away anytime soon. Stuff that's already on Google Play. And in terms of PS3 emulation, APS3E, yeah, is on the Google Play Store. And that developer is also verified. However, and this is a big however, while I don't necessarily think that this is going to kill emulation on Android, these changes I really think will put a dent in the scene, and a sizable dent. I mean, you've got apps like Winlator here, where arguably the developer is unverified, and well, Bruno may have to identify himself to have that app verified on the Google Play Store to be able to be sideloaded. And for Eden here, I don't necessarily think the developers are going to verify themselves to have this available to be put on the Google Play Store, or evaluated to be put on the Play Store, or even just to be able to be sideloaded. So overall here, specifically for the emulation on Android scene, I would expect there's going to be less experimental emulators out there, less forks of things, and less fly-by-night emulators. That could be a good thing, but that could also stifle development just a little bit. I'm assuming there are going to be a number of developers who value privacy and don't want to get verified, regardless of whether or not their emulator is legal or whatever they're developing is legal or not. And then I will say there will be some stuff that just flat out stops because of this. We're going to have to wait and see what happens moving forward here, and there is still time for Google to reverse this decision. I don't see that happening, but I do hope they do. I mean, overall here, I think Google is taking Android in the wrong direction. Not even having an option for the users to assume all of the risk and turn off those checks is silly in my opinion. Anyways, I also think alternatives to Android are going to increase in popularity. Not going to overtake Android, but I do think stuff like EOS or Lineage OS or something like Graphene OS are going to increase in popularity overall. Again, don't think they're going to overtake Android. I think the majority of Android users are just going to continue on using Android and accept these changes. And on a side note here, I do expect more custom versions of Android to pop up that work on a bunch of different devices that are not technically certified by Google that kind of circumvent all of this. We'll have to wait and see. And speaking about Android, next up we're talking about Realme. And Realme has just unveiled a phone here, or teased a phone, that features a 15,000 milliamp hour battery. I am not joking with you. This thing is going to be pretty heavy overall. Unfortunately, I don't know the price, the official specs, or the release date, or anything like that, but I'm assuming we're going to know fairly soon. And if we take a look at their announcement, they do say Realme 1X000 milliamp hours. However, if we zoom in on the image, it clearly says 15,000. If you don't believe me, here's the image zoomed in, and you can see 15,000 milliamp hours right on the back of that phone, and it's also very poorly photoshopped in. So no idea on how big this device is going to be, how heavy it's going to be, but we're going to know fairly soon here. And let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Would you like 50 hours of video streaming on a phone? And speaking about videos and images and that kind of stuff, next up here, we're talking about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And it's being reported that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom just got a 4K texture pack. From my understanding, this is up on Nexus Mods. Check out the DSO Gaming article for more information on the matter. And they also say here you will need an emulator with 8 GB extended DRAM to use it. Moving on, and we're going back a few letters in the alphabet here, from Z for Zelda to X for Xenia. And we're talking about Xbox 360. That was a terrible segue. Anyways, we're talking about Xbox 360 emulation with Xenia Manager. For those who may not be aware, Xenia Manager is a user-friendly tool designed to simplify the use of Xenia. And Xenia Manager just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Xenia Manager version 3.1.2 is the latest update. And they've updated their libraries here and updated magic.net to 14.8.0, which is crucial for a couple of exploits. And they've also updated StreamKit 2 to 3.3.1. Next up, we're talking about a fairly new emulator out there called Guac, which is a Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and regular Game Boy emulator. And they say here Guac is an emulator written in Golang for Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance handheld consoles. And this one just got a new update or new release. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this one, at the time of filming, version 0.0.1 is the initial and only release. And the developer does have a YouTube video explaining a lot about this emulator, and I'll link it in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. And speaking about emulator development, next up we're talking about Suyu, a Nintendo Switch emulator. or former Nintendo Switch emulator. Anyways, here we've talked about Suyu countless times in the past. And at this point in time, I would say that Suyu is dead, but it does seem that whoever's in charge of Suyu is trying to have the emulator carry on. There's a brand new post up here on Reddit EmuDev titled Public Suyu Dev Recruitment Post. Yes, unfortunately, you read that correctly. I'm looking for any Tom, Dick, and Harry to come and work on Suyu, and afterwards, if they wish, basically take the project on. So based on my understanding here, they have rebased Suyu from Yuzu Early Access to Eden. Earlier on, I think we talked about this one before, but Suyu seemed to have been just taking Yuzu Early Access stuff that hadn't released yet, made it public, and tried to take credit for it. And now for them rebasing from Yuzu Early Access to Eden tells me they really don't know what they're doing, because they're just hopping on whatever emulator is continuing on and trying to take the upgrades and changes from that. Whatever here, it does seem that Suyu is not in a good place and hasn't been for a while. On top of that, there seemed to have been a shot or two taken at Eden, and they're also asking for the developers to be over the age of 12. Overall here, I would say that Suyu is dead beyond recognition. I would be shocked if it continued on in a state that was better than something like Eden. But moving on from that, and next up we're talking about PlayStation 3 emulation with RPCS3, and I would say we're going from something arguably dead to something extremely alive. And RPCS3 got a number of brand new updates here, and some you may be interested in. So first and foremost here, for patches, they are selectable by double click. They say make patches selectable by double click, make VFS dialog items selectable by double click, and make sure there's always an item selected in the VFS dialog. So if you were looking at patches, they are now selectable by double click. On top of that, I would say this is a nice quality of life improvement. They've added a setting here for screenshot and recording hints. So if you don't like the hints popping up, you can disable them. On top of that, there seem to be some improvements here or fixes to Drakengard 3. It should be working a whole lot better now. And lastly, if you are using Linux, specifically CachyOS, there's a fix here for game mode to now be recognized. And speaking about CachyOS, next up we're talking about CachyOS. Now CachyOS is based on Arch Linux, so it does get a rolling release. However, there are some fixed releases every now and then, and well, this is one of them that just released. CachyOS August 2025 release. So they say here that this is the 6th release of Cachy this year, and it brings a packaged dashboard, stability improvements, and even more. And one of the interesting things here is that they install the Linux CachyOS LTS kernel out of the box as a fallback. If users encounter issues with the current kernel, they can rely on the LTS kernel. And they say this should improve stability and make recovery easier if problems arise. And speaking about Linux, and this is really more of just a friendly heads up, it was Linux's 34th birthday. It's been 34 years since Linus Torvalds announced that he was working on a free operating system. If you're interested in Linux, it's now 34 years old. Time flies, but it also seems like it's been around for longer than that. And speaking about friendly heads ups, next up we're talking about emulation on iOS with Folium. And I'm curious to see where this one goes, but the developer of Folium says that they're attempting to add PlayStation Vita and PS3 emulation to Folium. The latter obviously won't run well, so it's just for fun, or with JIT. And continuing to talk about friendly heads-ups, next up we're talking about DietPi, which is a free and open source Linux operating system that is very lightweight and snappy. And DietPi version 9.16 just dropped. If you've got a single board computer and you were looking for a super light OS that's also arguably pretty effective, you might want to check out DietPi. And they say version 9.16 here comes with support for the new Debian released on August 9th and many, many enhancements and fixes. Next up here, we're talking about EmuReady, and there's an interesting post over on Reddit Emulation on Android where EmuReady is asking for help. Now, for those who may be unaware, EmuReady started out as an open source compatibility tracker for different devices and different games. And it does seem that popularity has increased substantially here and server costs are on the rise. Now, from my understanding here, the developer is covering all of the server costs on their own. And I guess in the first month alone, they hit 500,000 active unique users, which is a heck of a lot. That's very popular right out of the gate. The developer is looking for help on what to do next, on maybe where to migrate for this to be self-hosted or really what. They're asking for suggestions and help, and if you wanted to learn more about this situation, I'll leave a link in the description below. Next up, we're talking about Baldur's Gate 3 on Android via Winlator CMod 13.1. It seems that someone with a Snapdragon 8 Elite was able to get this game up and running and arguably playable-ish. It is running at more than like 2 FPS, but there does seem to be quite a bit of issues going on with it. The Snapdragon 8 Elite is no slouch here, and they do show the configuration on how they are able to do this. Playable-ish, I think, is the word of the day, or the words of the day. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Do you think this is playable, or do you think this is it needs a little bit more time to cook? And speaking about cooking, it seems that a pretty cool patch for Dragon Ball Z The Legend on Sega Saturn has been cooked up. So if we take a look here over on Sega Extreme Forums, someone has released an English translation patch for this game on Sega Saturn. Now, interestingly here, they do say, do note that regardless of whether you're using the North American patch or the European patch, you should patch them over the European disc. This patch aims to translate the European French version of Dragon Ball Z The Legend into English, in an attempt to recreate the cancelled North American release. Next up, we're talking about Pokemon Go, and if you still play Pokemon Go, you might be excited to know that the level cap is going from 50 to 80 in October. I would say that this is a long time coming and should have happened well sooner than now. But at the same time here, I think this will be exciting for Pokemon Go players and may bring people back to the game. Let me know your thoughts about this one. Pokemon Go is still extremely popular. And speaking about stuff on mobile and stuff that's arguably going to be pretty popular, next up we're talking about Rust. And if you're interested in Rust on mobile or learning more about it or testing out a closed beta, Rust has announced there's going to be a closed beta in early November. And if you wanted to learn more about it and maybe even sign up for a chance at the closed beta, I'll drop a link in the description below. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a specific date just yet. They say early November 2025. And the regions here will be US, Canada, UK, Germany, France, Japan, and Thailand for iOS, Android, and tablets. And the capacity on this one is 30,000. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more than 30,000 people trying to get their hands on the closed beta. Good luck. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.